and welcome to exposing what's wrong with me while we color. First things first, you gotta pick a coloring book. This one's easy. Okay, what's wrong with me is that I don't have the attention span for that, and I never will. So it's just gonna stay where it is. And we're gonna color some enchanting unicorns. I conveniently decided to start recording this while they are doing yard work outside for whatever reason. So, sorry. So we're gonna color this one because it's not my favorite and I don't want to color my favorite. So I've been trying to film a video where I talk about this stuff for so long, but every time I do it, I ramble for too long and then I'm just sitting there talking for like 25 minutes. And honestly, I'm not sure that anybody would want to watch that ever. So instead, I decided, what can I do to make it more interesting? And we're gonna color and talk about everything that is the matter with me. Because honestly, I think that as a people, I feel like I'm shouting. As a people, I don't think that we talk about it enough. And I like to talk about it. I think I think that I have a special interest now in like mental health and myself and talking about it, because I could talk about this for a very long periodical time. And I could, and I do, and it's probably really annoying to the people around me, but you know what? This is me. This is what you get, because my parents didn't notice that something was wrong with me as a child, and so now I'm practically obsessed with figuring it out. Yeah, I feel like people don't talk about it enough, and I feel like I have kind of a, not necessarily unique, obviously, because I am hyper aware of the fact that no experience that I ever experience will be unique to me. But I feel like I have a perspective that isn't talked about a lot, which is everything that I deal with is like so mild that you really wouldn't know unless you were inside my head, because not only is it mild, but it stays in here. Like, I don't often let it out. I was trained as a child to keep it inside. Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know. Well, now they know. Yeah, so I have autism. I'm not formally diagnosed. I am self-diagnosed. Now, don't come for me when I tell people that I am on the spectrum. I don't say it as a definitive thing. It's something I'm usually like, well, I think that I'm on the spectrum, and that's maybe why I do X, Y, Z. So I am like very sure that I'm on the spectrum, and it's not like you know, I didn't just see a couple of TikToks and then decide like, hey, I relate to that, I'm autistic. Now, that's not to say that TikTok hasn't heavily influenced my suspicion, but it is also backed up with evidence. I have taken the RADS, the Aspie quiz, the empathy quotient, the CAT-Q. I've taken literally every autism screening device online that I could find. I've also looked at the DSM-5 criteria, and I started a like a document where I just kind of go over all of the criteria and how it relates to me. And wouldn't you know that I do indeed fit all of the criteria that it would take to get diagnosed with autism. That is also not to say that that would get me professionally diagnosed, because my autism is autism in such a way where I have such low support needs as far as like anything that anybody else could or would do for me. My sensory issues are pretty mild unless I'm already overstimulated or burnt out. My social issues are mostly like internal. Like, I just sort of internalize it. I have a lot of anxiety, but like, you know, it's inside. So like, nobody would really ever know that anything was the matter with me. And clearly not, because I've gone my whole entire life and nobody ever thought to bring it up. Like, pretty sure that I'm autistic. And I also think that I got the combo meal. I got the 4 for 4. It's actually like more of a 2 for 2. But I also have AuDHD. And I've just also lived with that my entire life as well. I also have restless leg syndrome. I have chronic depression. And my psychiatrist also thinks that I have a mood disorder. I don't think I have a mood disorder. I'm pretty sure it's just the ADHD. I also just have generalized anxiety, but it could also be the autism. Like, when I had first started talking to my last therapist, I was like, no, I don't really have like generalized anxiety. The anxiety that I have is like situational. It's about like money or situations that's going on at home. Like, that's the only time that I really feel anxious. But I think that the reason why I thought that was simply just because we don't really talk about the specifics, and maybe that's my autism. I think maybe it is taking it very literally, because like to me, having anxiety is like constant worry. Like, the only thing that you're doing in your brain is worrying. And that's what I thought that they meant by like, you know, constant worry. But I think that what they mean is that you have worries. It's not necessarily constant in your brain, but you have worries that are just like very irrational. Like, every time a fire truck comes down my street, I like to watch the fire trucks, autism. But every time a fire truck comes down the street, like, I get up and I watch, and I'm always like, oh my God, like, what am I gonna grab? Like, if my building's on fire, like, what would I do? That would be so scary. And I like get myself worked up about it to a point where like I'm actually like scared of that happening. But then I have to remind myself, like, you don't have to fear things that haven't happened yet. Like, it hasn't happened yet. When it happens, or if it happens, we'll deal with it then. But like right now in this moment, like, there's no sense in worrying about it. But yeah, I do be just anxious over stuff that hasn't happened yet. But yeah, so that's what's wrong with me. What's wrong with you? How are you doing? I do want to talk about it a little bit more though, because I think, again, my experience is important to share. I mean, obviously I think everybody's experience is important to share, because there's always going to be somebody else out there who has a shared experience, and they have a shared experience, but they don't know that anything is up. Like, they don't know that's not like the regular human experience, because I certainly didn't until it started to, you know, blow up on TikTok and people started talking about ADHD, and then people started talking about autism. And I feel like something that a lot of people struggle with when it comes to like the self-assessments for autism, like even just in general, the assessments for autism, is that we do tend to take things very literally. And again, taking things very literally, when I hear that, I think, okay, well, that means that you have to take everything literally, and you literally don't understand, you know, any of like the sayings that people use, and you just take everything literally. I don't take everything literally, but there are some things that I take very literally, and a lot of the criteria is like that. So I spend so much time sitting there like, like, do I do that? Like, I genuinely, honestly, truly do not know. Somebody please tell me. I've just been doing a lot of like reflecting, and the funniest part about it is I'll be like, well, maybe I'm not autistic because I didn't do that as a child, but then I kind of just start to remember things that I did in fact do as a child, and I'm like, oh, okay, because I did that. And again, everything for me is and has been pretty mild. It's definitely become more prominent the more I learn about it and the more that I start to unmask. And honestly, it's like you never really know why you are the way that you are until like you find out why you are the way that you are. You know, you don't really have the words to put to it, but like I never felt like I fit in. And I just mean that in every aspect of that word. I never felt like, and that's not to say that I didn't have friends. I didn't really have trouble making friends as a child. I had friends like in school. The only time that I think that I struggled to make friends was outside of like a common context. Like if I was taking a gymnastics class, then yeah, I could make friends in there because we had a shared love for gymnastics, and then we could talk about that. In school, you know, we are in school together all day, every day. Like, you know, it's easy to connect to people like that, but it only really started to become a problem for me when I got to college, because no longer do you just like have that common ground with people in the same way. And that's why I was really depressed when I went away for college, because I had the hardest time creating like solid friendships. I would have friends like in my classes, but then class would be over and then everybody would be talking about like going out and stuff, and I was just sort of there, and it just sort of sucked. And I just felt so lonely and alone and depressed in college, and I spent 95% of my time by myself. So one thing that I've been dealing with my whole entire life is shutdowns, which basically an autistic shutdown is when you just have, it's basically like sensory overload. Like you've been like interacting a lot or masking a lot, and you know there's a lot of noise going on maybe, or like smells and stuff. It's basically just like you get overwhelmed to the point where like any battery that you had inside of you, any drive that you had to keep going and interacting with people, it just sort of dies. And I've been dealing with that since I was a child. Thinking back, like I remember I used to have, I mean this would happen like with my like regular friends as well, but I specifically remember like my cousin would stay the night, and I mean I loved her to death, but like sometimes it would just get to be too much. Like if she stayed like more than one night, because I needed time to myself to recharge. I needed time to just like have the quietness to myself and to just like not be constantly interacting with people. And like when I didn't get that, I would literally just shut down, and you know I couldn't like put the light behind my eyes anymore. I didn't want to laugh or smile or talk, and I would just sort of I would literally just shut down. And I remember my cousin asked me once, she's like, why do you always get like this? And I was like, child, I don't fucking know, but leave me the hell alone. And I was like 8, 9, 10 at this point, you know. And I feel like maybe I've just always been kind of a strange kid. I mean, I grew up basically, I played by myself a lot because I had 2 older brothers, and they didn't necessarily want to play dolls with me or anything like that. I remember being obsessed with cheetahs. I used to give presentations on cheetahs in the 2nd grade because we used to just have random times where you could get up and give a presentation, and I remember multiple of my presentations were on cheetahs. I used to like have competitions with my older brothers to see who could stand on the hot pavement longest, and I always won because it was like I could just turn the pain off until like it just didn't feel like pain anymore, and I can like still sort of do that. Kind of strange, right? I don't know. Hearing stories about myself growing up, like one of my cousins like will literally tell me every time I see her, like, yeah, you like really hated everybody when you were little, like you didn't like to be touched, like you were just very blunt and like sarcastic. And I'm like, so like nobody thought that it was weird that the 5-year-old was blunt and sarcastic? Like nobody thought that that was a little strange, a little odd, a little like out of the ordinary for a 5-year-old? Just little things that just sort of add up, and the more that I think about them, the more I'm like, like nobody thought that that was, nobody, you didn't find that suspicious, you didn't find that weird? But no, apparently nobody did, so go figure. Now here I am as a 25-year-old adult, and I have to put the pieces together myself. Here's our progress so far. I don't think we're gonna finish this together, but we can do a part 2, I guess, if you guys want it. What's funny is, and maybe not funny, but when I was like 17, I went to my primary care doctor and I said, I think I have ADHD. Now again, as a 17-year-old, I wasn't really that articulate about what was actually going on, and I didn't really know what to say. I was also super duper anxious about even bringing it up. It was very hard for me to even bring it up to my doctor. I was so anxious like in that moment to speak up, because speaking up about literally anything is very difficult for me, especially if I think about it. So like even like complimenting people is really hard for me. Like just saying words and speaking is difficult sometimes. It's like I overthink the words too much, and like then in my brain I'm like, okay, well you've been thinking about it for too long, like it's been silent for too long, like now it's too late to say anything at all. So then like I just don't say anything at all. But if I don't think about it and I just say it like the moment I think about it and the moment I can formulate the words in my brain and translate them out, then I can say them. But like otherwise, like I think about it too much and then I just can't say anything at all. But so I was super anxious to bring it up to her. I said basically how I get anxious like towards the end of class, and I really like just can't sit still, and I get really anxious and like antsy. And I forget exactly what else I said to her, but she was like, oh well, like I'll find the screener. And then she couldn't find the screener, and she's like, but I think you're fine. At 17, what I was struggling with and what I couldn't explain was that I couldn't sit down and study. I was only putting my bare minimum into any and all of my work, which my bare minimum was enough to get me A's and B's and C's. It was enough for me to pass, so nobody noticed anything was off. You know, I get really fucking irritated, like if a teacher was to give out like a worksheet and say, okay, this is the work that you're doing today, and then like one person would ask a question about it, and it's something that I understood because I'm like, this is basic information, it's so simple to figure this out, why the heck are you asking questions? It's so simple. But like I would get really irritated when that would happen, or the teacher would be going through explaining everything word by word. Because I can't focus, I can't start doing the work until you stop talking. I can't focus, but I also already understand, and it's taking too long for other people to understand, and so I'm irritated. I also was very irritable growing up. As a teenager, everyone just chalks that up to being a teenager, but I was very irritable. It was very difficult to get started in something, and it was very difficult to be interrupted while I was doing something. There's just a lot of things that I think back on, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. And now as an adult, I'm having to put all the pieces together and come to the conclusion that maybe I'm just autistic, and that's why I've never felt like I fit in anywhere. I literally have felt, and this is with my family too, and it's not like because of anything that they do or anything that I do, but I've always felt like there is just like this invisible like piece of like plexiglass or plastic or whatever in between me and everybody in my life, and it always has felt like that. It's always felt like I am the odd man out, even if technically I'm not. Like, it's always felt like I'm the odd man out. I don't necessarily belong. I don't fit in fully here. And I felt like that with every single community I've ever been a part of growing up. Even as an adult, I feel that. But you know where the one place I feel like I fit in completely is? The autism community. And I have to say that I am absolutely terrified of being invalidated by a medical professional, because if I was to get professionally assessed and they said, you don't have autism, I would feel so lost again, because I'm like, okay, well, that's where I fit in, so where am I supposed to go now? I don't know. But here is our mostly finished product. I have to go get my window replaced. That's a story for another time. But if you guys want to hear more about what's wrong with me and you want me to talk more about my experiences, let me know, because obviously I'd be very glad to. Anyways, I will see you in my next video. Bye! Thanks for hanging out with me. If you're autistic, let me know in the comments down below. Or if you have ADHD or whatever else is wrong with you that you feel like sharing your experience, this is a safe place to share your experiences and the fucked up thoughts that you have in your brain. I will not judge you, and yeah, so thanks. Okay, bye.